This is Greg Ferguson, Bayer agronomist here in the Mid-South. Today, I'm going to take you through and give you a new look at our Asgrow XtendFlex soybeans. The ones that I'm going to talk about today are our late group 4s. Now, what XtendFlex is tolerant to Roundup, XtendiMax, and Liberty herbicides. Some of these are also tolerant to sulfonylurea herbicides. They're considered SR varieties. I'll talk about those when we get to them. So the test that we're going to look at today was planted on April the 21st. It's planted on a very heavy alligator clay. It is irrigated, but certainly hadn't needed much of that this year. These went through a fairly wet and cool period. You'll see that some of them haven't quite lapped the middles. In other words, this has been a really good test to see how well these soybeans bush out and how good they look on wider rows and things like that. These are planted on 30-inch rows, and these plots are 12 rows wide. So you'll get a good idea of kind of what they look like. So let's take a look at them. So the first one we're going to look at is really not going to need a lot of introduction or explanation from me. This is our Asgrow 46X6, and it's basically a check variety in this. Now, we all know that one has been one of the leading varieties sold throughout here in the Mid-South and does extremely well on a wide variety of soils and situations. You can see here that this one is good and bushy. It's pretty well lapped these middles. You can actually see down in the canopy and see these red beans or the tawny beans, that have loaded up into the top of these plants. You can see this is a really good, healthy looking soybean. There's not a lot I can tell you about this one you don't already know. So let's move on to the next one. So this is one of our new XtendFlex soybeans that I'm really, really excited to see how they perform this year. This is our Asgrow 48XF2. Now you're going to see this one. The reason I have it put right against the 46X6, this one is very, very similar to 46X6. If you look down in the canopy, you can see those tawny brown pods that are down in there. It looks a lot like it. You'll also see that the canopy is pretty well lapped these middles. It's a really good, healthy looking plant. Again, just like a 46X6, it's an excluder. It's got very good tolerance to stem canker. It's pretty good on frog eye. It's got pretty good standability. It's especially well adapted to going in very, very heavy soils, just like 46X6. These two are very similar. I think this is one that's going to look really good come harvest time. This is our Asgrow 47XFO. Unfortunately, we had a little hiccup with the planter right here, so the plot doesn't look all that great. But we looked at these soybeans last year and were very, very impressed with them. This one has probably got the best standability of any bean that we have in the Asgrow lineup. You see down in the canopy there, you can kind of see those tawny brown pods. It's a red bean that's looks similar to like a 46X6, but it's not the same soybean. If they're growing side by side, you can certainly tell that. This one has got just excellent standability on heavy or light soils. This is also an SR bean, meaning that it is tolerant to certain sulfonylurea herbicides. That's a really good trait to have if you've got certain weed conditions. It's really a strong soybean for heavy soils and for light soils. We really didn't see that it had any big preference one way or the other. One thing that, again, like I've seen, is on these lighter soils, especially planted later in the season, it's got really, really good standability. Performance last year was very similar to what we saw out of 46X6 and 48X9. This is one of our new XtendFlex beans also. This is our Asgrow 47XF2. We really like the looks of this one. It's a great looking soybean. It's not quite as tall as our 48X9 and maybe not quite as bushy as our 46X6. It is an SR bean. In other words, it is tolerant to certain sulfonylurea herbicides. We really like this one because we've seen that it is very tolerant of stem canker and very good on frog eye. We like the standability as well. May not be quite as bushy, as I said, like the 46X6, but so far the soybean looks very good. It's potted up really well, and we're really excited to get the yields out and see what this one looks like. This is our Asgrow 48XFO. We had tested this one last year as one of our XtendFlex introductions, and it looked really good in our lighter soils. It tends to prefer those lighter soils, and it tends to prefer irrigated soils as well. It's more of a high yield soybean for really light, strong ground. It's also an SR bean, so it is tolerant to sulfonylurea herbicides. The last one that I'm going to talk about here is one that you probably know as well. This is our Asgrow 48X9. And I basically just have this in here for comparison purposes as far as how well these lap the middles and also how tall. This is the tallest bean in the plot. It does stand very well because we know our 48X9s have done that for a long time. We know that the 48X9 is a good high yield soybean. It's very, very tolerant of heavy clay soils and does really well in a lot of different situations. We planted a lot of those all over the place, and like some of the others, this one is an excluder. We have a couple of excluders in this new class, but we're certainly going to get through these and see how they do later on after we get the harvest. So we're certainly going to take these plots to yield. We'll give you those results as we get most of the plots out across the Mid-South. And we're going to have quite a few of the plots with these newer varieties in them. You can see here I still have this 48XF2 as basically my last plot slide. We really like the looks of this one. We're excited to see what it's going to yield and how it's going to do at the end of the season. Just love looking down in the canopy and see those tawny brown pods. Really, really good looking soybean. You know it's going to look great with the leaves off of it. Well, I really appreciate your time and attention. Thanks for going through these with me. And if you have any questions about any of these new XtendFlex soybeans or any of our soybeans for that matter, certainly give your local Asgrow representative a call. They can help you out with whatever you need. Thanks a lot.